Well, the public servants affiliated to the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, that's Nehawu, will be taking to the street for the second day today. Yesterday, the strike went ahead despite a ruling by the Labour Court which interdicted the action. Worker unions are disgruntled by the government offer, while unions are demanding between 10 and 12%. So, Acting Minister of Public Service and Administration, Shingange, strongly condemned the strike. Shingange said the strike action is illegal following the court judgment by the Labour Court in Johannesburg that has dismissed Nehawu's appeal. Addressing the media yesterday, the minister said the principle of no work, no pay is non-negotiable. The president of the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, Mike Shingange, joins us now to talk about this. Mike, thank you. Thanks very, very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you very much, yourself and your listeners.
So, Mike, I'm going to begin with a question. I suppose we need to just quickly take a look at the cabinet reshuffle. And obviously, Shingange been in this acting position for quite some time, and he was quite vocal yesterday about the action that was taken by Nehawu. Now you have a new minister in this portfolio, Kivit. So what are your views on this? Do you think this will change anything, or pretty much so leave things as they are right now?
Well, as for the former acting minister, Shingange, I suppose he was bidding us farewell yesterday because I'm sure he knew he was leaving. But that we have to come to an institution like the PPSA and speak about personalities. It is actually an indictment on those who have held that position. Ordinarily, it shouldn't matter who is the minister if the principles that have been established in the public service of cordial relationship and mutual respect in the bargaining processes. It shouldn't matter who is the minister. Of course, we welcome, not because we think she will do better than others, but we do think that it is important that we have a minister, not an acting minister. It was actually baffling us that one minister was holding two huge positions, like the one of labor and employment, and at the same time the one of the public service and administration. It's not a small department. That perhaps will bring stability. We're not passing any judgment on their capacity. We're not abreast with their track record, but as you will know, Leanne, that collective bargaining now has now been usurped by the National Treasury. So it doesn't matter necessarily who is the minister now. So they think that the key issue here will be the attitude and the conduct of the National Treasury towards the whole issue of the bargaining process.
Indeed. So important to get your reaction on this. And as you say, at this point, it doesn't really matter who is the minister there. This is still continuing. So we into the second day on the streets. Now, you're in Mpumalanga. Tell us what happened yesterday and what people can expect today.
Well, yesterday, like everywhere else in the country, workers were out. They responded to the call that the strike must continue because it was their decision in the first instance that they are tired of many other efforts that the leadership and the negotiators of the union have been doing of trying to engage either in the bargaining council, which they were left, either through political intervention with the ministers, or even in the clusters of the ministers who constitute what they call a mandating committee. It didn't work. And for all along, the workers have been feeling that it is the union leadership that is holding them back. It is the union leadership that do not want them to express their anger or to fight for themselves. So the workers came out yesterday. What public can expect, unfortunately, is that the public service is still going to be affected because the workers are more resolute than ever before. I must say, for each hour and each day that the state writes a circular to intimidate workers, for each hour and each day that the state goes to court, it's helping to mobilize the workers more and more because now they come to realize the kind of the institution we're dealing with as a state and their attitude towards the workers in general, particularly the workers who are supposed to be the battalion that delivers the service to our people.
Yeah, I mean, it was yesterday was something where obviously we're understanding that many of the workers were blocked from entering government buildings, that despite a ruling by the Labour Court which interdicted the action, you had members that were still going out on the strike. Why was the decision taken that you would strike, even though this is not necessarily protected, and it's still going ahead in terms of no work, no pay?
Well, let's address those three things in three ways, Leanne. One is that when a court order was given on Saturday afternoon without giving reasons, what is it that we have offended in our strike certificate and our strike notice? We had no choice but to appeal that, because you can't say to me, I see you're angry, I see you're hungry, I see you want to eat, I see you're crying, but I'm going to tie your hands now. But I'm going to tell you 2 days to come why I'm tying your hands. But for now, just stand still there. That's what actually the judge was subjecting us to. Interdict us without telling us what is it that we have offended, and on until Monday. So we had to appeal. And obviously, in terms of the law as we understand it, in terms of the Superior Court Act, that thing automatically suspended the order. And at night on Sunday, the state tried to go back and do the agent application, which we opposed, but of course they were granted yesterday. Again, we've appealed. And now that we've appealed, the strike is still protected as far as we're concerned. That's why the workers are on the strike today, because we have appealed. We want the finality of the main appeal. We must be told what is it that we've offended, whether or not our leave to appeal has been granted, and that's where this matter is going to be resolved. But we're saying those who go to court, they must go to court. Now, it's not a surprise here and that people have left at the bargaining council more than 3 times. When we're in conciliation, when we're arbitration, when we're negotiating, people have even walked away from a signed agreement. And they went to court, or even went to parliament and pronounced on the conditions of service of workers without workers being present. So we understand, workers understand the kind of the state they're dealing with, that they will do anything in defense of capital to push the workers back. They want workers to almost feel like slaves with no recourse at all under a democratic state that we have all signed up for. Let me address the issue of no work, no pay. No work, no pay is not a punishment for defying a court order. No work, no pay is not a punishment for being on strike. No work, no pay is a principle rule that workers understand, that once you have not worked, exercising your constitutional right to protest and demonstrate, the state or any other employer in the country will have a right to implement that. It's not a scare code that can be used to scare workers from going to work. It's not that they are not aware of that.
Mm-hmm. So the wage negotiations broke down because the government offered 4.7% increase, while unions are demanding between 10 and 12%. I mean, this is a huge gap between what government is offering and what the unions demand. Have the unions at all? I mean, is there any talks? Is there any possibility that you can settle on a lesser amount? Because 10%, many may not be possible. As the government has been saying, there's just no money. And the Department of Labour and the National Treasury Ministers last year jointly said that an increase that is more than 3% is not even possible. Okay,
for us who are on strike, then the gap between us and the state is between the 3% and the 10% we are demanding. Remember, we are on the strike here because of the negotiations that broke down last year, 2022, to which we declared a dispute, to which we went for conciliation. At the point of the reconciliation, the Minister of Treasury and that one of the TPSA then left us and they went to Parliament in October and announced the budget and unilaterally implemented the 3%. Now, this is the dispute that we are fighting for. We are not discussing the gap between the so-called 4.7% and the 10% that is for 2023 going forward. We are at a point where we are against unilateralism in this democracy of ours. We are at a point where we are demanding to close the gap that existed since the state walked away from a 3-year signed agreement in 2020, the one of Resolution 1 of 2018. That created a 3-year gap in terms of the earning capacity and the spending capacity and the buying power, or, if you like, the cost of living of the public servants today. That doesn't matter what you give them. They will never recover that gap that was created then unless you close it. It would be rejected 3% last year because it was far way too low to the inflation. If you can't at least give an inflation-related increase, you have not done anything to any worker. Because the thing, you have not even adjusted the cost of living, at least to keep the person afloat in terms of what he was earning and what he was able to afford the previous year and what he must afford going forward. Even if you don't give them an increase, at least take him or her to the level of the inflation. If that does not happen, it amounts to a salary decrease. That's why we're on the street. We're on the street to close that gap, not as yet the one of 2023 going forward.
Yeah. You know, obviously, Nehawu refuses to return to the bargaining council until its demands are met. But isn't that where negotiations are supposed to take place? Because as we spoke about it a bit earlier, I mean, Nehawu being prevented entry to government buildings during the strike at the Home Affairs building in Cape Town. The worry is that doesn't this perhaps put everyone at risk as government sees it as provocation as opposed to rather sitting around a table discussing it?
It's incorrect that Nehawu is refusing to go to the bargaining council. I just told you, we were left at the bargaining council last year in October. People left us when we were sitting there with the negotiators of the employer and the negotiators of the union and the commissioners when we were conciliating these negotiations. They went to Parliament. They announced while we were there, the PCBC in Centurion, they were in Cape Town in Parliament implementing a salary increase. So it's not true that we were not prepared to return back to negotiations. They left us there. They were not doing it for the first time. They did it in 2020 when they went to court while we were still at arbitration. It is them who are walking away from the collective bargaining. If they say to us, come to the bargaining council tomorrow or even now, we will go there. As long as we are going there to engage on the impasse and the dispute that is currently ongoing. That's all we are saying. We have never been disengaging or shied away from negotiation. We are actually signed up for a social dialogue. The issue of preventing to go to work or perhaps provocation, we do think that workers themselves here have been provoked enough, number one. But number two, it's unfortunate that where the public buildings are found, where the public service is supposed to be delivered, is where we work. That is our workplace. And when workers, as enshrined in the Constitution and Elaboration Act, decides to withdraw their labor, it's inevitable that there will be no services. So we can't strike anywhere. We strike where we work. We're not blocking anybody. We're striking where we work. All those institutions of public service, it's our workplace. The day we decide that we are not working or downing tools, it means we're not providing service. It's not blocking anybody. It's not provoking anybody. But as for the negotiations, we're very ready. And today I can drive to Centurion now and have a discussion with the department should they want to resolve this matter that they left us and they went to Parliament. Now they're leaving us, they went to court. They shouldn't have gone to court. They should have called us the meeting, but they're going to court. So we have no choice here.
The question I need to ask you is that the unification within unions, because it's not all unions that are on the streets at this stage, as unions had showed a united front last year. What has since happened?
Well, you will know that for any course of action that a union must embark on, it derives that decision from a mandate from its members. And also it depends on the tactics that the union wants to employ, fighting for the same thing, because we don't believe that there's any union that does not understand or does not want or does not fight for the same interest that we are fighting for. However, probably using different fronts, different tactics, informed by different mandates. But we do understand that those who are not on the street now, who were not part of the dispute in the first instance, it is because that they're pursuing a different course of action or a different tactics. But the fact that which troubles workers across is the same. It's undisputable. And that is the one that unites workers. And we do think that workers are united on this matter, of course, using different platforms and different tactics. The ones who are in the bargaining council, the ones that are demanding, which we support, by the way, their demands, because the demands is informed by the same facts, except that we are fighting for two different financial years.
Just my final question to you. We did address it a bit earlier, but I just want to get a proper comment from you in terms of the principle of no work, no pay. This was non-negotiable. What is going to happen going forward from today?
The strike continues there. As you speak to me, I'm on the road. I'm going to picket lines. The picket lines are holding this morning as they were held yesterday. As I said earlier on, it is nothing new. It is part of all those things that goes as a package when the negotiations have deadlocked like that. Of course, unfortunately, it is a tool that the state because it's so powerful. It's going to play the power relations here. They're going to use it to scare workers and intimidate them. They might not succeed. They might succeed at some point, but whether or not the strike is illegal or not in the past, this matter of has always been there, and our members have always been clear about that thing. All we are saying is that when we must fight for our right, when we feel the pain, you cannot ask a permission whether or not you must cry when you're hurt. We are commemorating Leanne this year as workers in this country, 50 years of the Durban 1973 strike. Those workers fought against a very repressive regime where there was no labor relations, there was no even collective bargaining. They didn't ask permission to fight. They fought where even they were risking even to die. Unfortunately, we're walking the same road now where the state is even more brutal than those who might have come before them. But we're not going to be asking the permission whether or not we must cry, whether or not we must seek something to eat because we are hungry, or whether or not we must fight for our liberation.
We leave it there for this morning, Mike. Thank you. Thanks very, very much. We'll be following this strike action closely. And of course, that's the National Education Health Allied Workers Union. That's Nehawu President Mike Shingange talking to us as unions continue the strike action despite the government's position on the principle of no work, no pay.